What's going on, guys? Today we are doing the 14-piece bushing set from our good friends over at James Duff. Today I'm working on my 1975 Ford Bronco. It's classic. It's a beauty. First, I must say, I am not a professional, nor do I claim to be a professional mechanic, so I'm probably going to do things wrong. I'm probably going to mess a couple things up, and I know I'm going to do stuff that everyone out there doesn't agree with. Feel free to leave it on the comments, but just know that I'm a man of many mistakes. If you screw something up on your car, by following my instructions, I'm very sorry, but it's not my fault. So where I'm getting most of my information is from the Classic Bronco's site, classicbroncos.com. And there is a tech article for the bushing install. So that's what I'm going through, and that's what I'm going to take you guys through. The link to the article is in the info section down below, so check that out. Also, there is a link to the 14-piece bushing kit. Comes in a very small box like this one. I am going to try to break these videos up into two sections. One, the strip down, the uninstall, tearing everything apart, and then video number two, the install. Step number one, clean up everything before you get started. There's like 40 years of garbage. If you are watching this and you haven't even gotten started, move your Bronco out of the garage, get a pressure washer, spray the thing down and clean it up, and then bring it in and start working on it. Step number two, stay organized. If you'll notice here, I have little baggies that are numbered for all of my parts that I've been taking off. This is step number 14, the springs, both sides. Hopefully both sides. Step number 3, this is your friend. Hey PB Blaster, what are you doing tonight? Oh yeah, me too. This stuff is awesome. Before I started, I sprayed everything down 2 days before I started. Sprayed it down that night, sprayed it down the next morning, then the next night, and then I started the next morning. So step number 4, work on a level surface. You're going to jack your Bronco up, but you want to start level. It's really, really important. Alright, so let's get started. Jack up the Bronco from underneath the pumpkin where the axle is. Once I did that, I took a bunch of 2x12s, cut them down, and built some wooden platforms for my jack stands. I was worried that they were going to be too high, but they weren't high enough, so I even had to put some 2x4s on top of the jack stands. Believe me, this is the safest thing you'll ever do. What you want to do is you want to put your jack stands under your frame far enough to the front bumper as you can so that you can still get to the axle. Then go ahead and take off the front wheels. You don't need them. Throw them to the side. Then what you want to do, step number 8, this is when you start taking stuff apart. You want to remove the drag link at the pitman arm. Then step number 9, remove the steering stabilizer. Super easy, nuts on both sides, just keep it from spinning. So next, you're going to remove your tie rod. But let me show you something before you remove your tie rod. This is the tie rod. You unscrew the nut, this thing will drop out. Not so. Unscrew the nut, and nothing happened. It stayed in there. So, please do not do this. Do not hit this bolt with a hammer to get it to come out. I know it sounds like a good idea, but it's a bad idea. Because now what I have is a tie rod that the nut cannot go back on top because I have crushed the threads. So now I get to buy new tie rods. So if you do hit this thing, hit it here on the side, this way, and it will fall out. Or use a pitman arm puller, put it on top, tighten it until it pops free. Next, you'll remove your track bar. Same thing with that one. Be careful of the bolts, but comes out pretty easy. So next, Classic Broncos recommends to remove the brake lines. I did not do this, and so far it has worked for me. The reason I didn't do this is because my brake lines are rusted together. They're old, they're the original ones, and so I know if I start taking them apart that I will be rebuilding my brake system, and I don't want to do that right now. If you don't take them out right now, they are going to get under some pressure, and they're going to get in your way. So I just worked around it, but if you can take your brake lines out, I definitely would. All right, next, remove your shocks. Those are pretty easy because your springs are holding everything together. Then remove your springs. To do this, what you want to do is you want to start with the 2 bolts in the retainer cup. Loosen those up and then begin loosening the bolts at the top of the spring. There are 2 bolts at the top of the spring. Once you got those out, you can probably wiggle the spring out and then take your spring cups out. Next, you're going to get the axle out of the way. So unscrew the 4 bolts that hold the axle in place. And then what I did was I put a piece of tape around the end of the axle just so those little balls in there don't come out and everything, and I don't lose any and all of that stuff. I also took a tie strap and tied up the axle just so it's kind of out of the way. At this point, your axle should only be held by the radius arms. And so what you want to do is remove the bolts at the end of the radius arms. These things were the hardest for me to get out. It took me forever and I looked like an idiot doing it. But once you get the bolts off the back of the radius arms, what you want to do is you want to pull the axle forward and pull the radius arms out of that bracket that's holding them in the back. Now your axle's free, radius arms are free, everything is free, and what you want to do is unscrew the 4 bolts that are holding the radius arm cups together and pull off your C-bushings. This is my old C-bushing. So this is pretty old and super flimsy. If you look, this is the new James Duff C-bushing. I cannot do this. When you're removing the bushings from your track bar, what you want to do is you want to take a razor blade and just cut down the side of the track bar so that you can pull the lip of the bushing out, and then the rest of it will just kind of pop out. Someone told me to drill a bunch of tiny holes in there. That works as well, but I found that just slicing it down, cutting the lip off of it, you can just pull it out after that. And just like that, we have everything taken apart. But before you start putting stuff back together, take your time at this step and clean everything. Repaint it, refinish it. I resprayed my springs. They used to be red, and I thought, hey, why don't I spray them blue? And so I got a good blue, and I sprayed them blue. So respray, recover, clean up everything. You're going to be thankful that you did. Even if you're taking this truck going mudding again, dude, it's just easier. Clean it up. Next, what I'm going to go through is putting everything back together. How to put all the bushings back in and rebuild everything. Thanks for watching, and check out the social links at the bottom of this page.